In your organization, sometimes you have to start with making physical changes, such as shift. The gates are so important. Let's talk a minute about gates and historically or biblically why they're so important. The importance of gates was clear in the minds of the Hebrew children, for God had referred to this when he made his promises to Abraham. Let me read from Genesis 22:17. It says that in blessing, this is the promise from God to Abraham again, I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heavens and the sands which are upon the seashore, and thy seed shall possess the gates of his enemy. And in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because they have obeyed my voice. Again, the promise to Abraham was that you'll possess your gates and the gates of the enemy. The gates represented authority. The gates represented stability. When you study the gates, particularly in the Old Testament, the place where management took place, it's the entrance and the exits of all transactions took place there. It sets the boundaries. It was the cultural compass for the city. It was where government was managed. Matter of fact, it says even the kings sat in the gates. It's where everything legal was done and all transactions were recorded. It was where people sat with the elders to draw from the wisdom of the elders at the gates. It's a place where all business transactions would take place. Though the gates represented the place of authority and influence. Remember, it even said that Lot, when he sat in the gates of Sodom. You remember when Absalom was rebelling against his father, the King David, that he went to the gates to influence people. Well, let me expand a little bit more on that. There's two places in the Bible that represent authority and inspiration: the mountains and the gates. Mountains were the place in the Bible that meant inspiration, worship, high places, revelation, and intimacy. You remember that Moses went to the top of the mountains to spend time with God and to receive the Ten Commandments. You may recall that Jesus taught the Beatitudes from on top of the mountain. Also, that when Jesus wanted to spend time with the Father, he would go to the top of the mountains and spend time praying there. And it was on the Mount of Olives that Jesus had his time with the Heavenly Father when he had his final prayer with him. But then we're to take, and so it represents mountains, inspiration, revelation, and authority being transferred and taken from the mountains down to the earth, to the lowlands, and there establish it through building the gates. So that was why you can see that it was so important to see the restoration of the walls and the gates for Nehemiah. His ultimate goal was to reestablish the glory of the Lord, and to do that he needed to reestablish worship. So to reestablish worship, he wanted people to go from the mountains down to the gates, and there they could build into them a place where the people could see the glory and know it. So, by the way, it's time for the church to take dominion of the gates that we know. We call them the seven mountains, or the places of influence. So now we've changed their perspective, we've changed their perception, their perspective, they changed their attitude, and now their behavior has to change. The attitude now would be, I'll go to Jerusalem, for it's time to restore the worship. Their behavior would be, I will pack up, and leave Babylon. I will cast my future with the people in Jerusalem. This would change their habits, breaking the old habits, the Babylonian habits, and reestablishing new habits. So what's the application, the nugget of all of this? What are the gates of your organization? Where are the points of influence and key points of transitions of maintaining your dominance in the marketplace. Marketing, quality control, employee and relationships, customer relationships, setting boundaries, customer-client relationship. Where are the key gates when you look at these different functions in your organization? Your vision may be great, but are the key factors of implementing success in place in the gates? Talk to you again later about another nugget.